Here's your host, Dan Celia.
Good morning. Welcome back to Financial Issues. My name's Dan Celia. It's great to be here. We've got some economic news coming out this morning. I want to talk about that. I also want to just kind of recap what the Federal Reserve, what came out of the Federal Reserve minutes yesterday, give you some idea of what people are looking at. And by the way, I don't know if it's as a result of that. I mean, they're claiming the China data that has come out as the reason why we're seeing futures down. And of course, that is the reason why European markets are down. But let me just take a look at, give you some idea, and we'll get through some of this economic data, and then we'll talk about it. Of course, it's Thursday, so Thursday morning, first-time unemployment claims came out. Pretty much a non-event, not a big deal. They did come out this morning, and they were down 3,000 to 336,000. Very interesting, though. The government said continuing claims increased by 37,000. So, it's great. We got a decrease of 3,000, but tucked away in the fine print is the detail that 37,000 have been added to continued claims. So it doesn't look like there is any kind of consistent pace of those filing for unemployment claims and those staying on unemployment claims decreasing. As a matter of fact, it increased 37,000. That's taking us back up to almost 3 million. We're very close to 3 million, and so that has been moving in the wrong direction for quite some time now. So that is not good news, by the way. They will try to, the only thing you're going to see, everybody, the only thing you're going to see is the idea that the first-time unemployment claims dropped again by 3,000. That's what you're going to see. So do not be deceived. We also got some disturbing news. This is not going to be considered disturbing news. As a matter of fact, I've already heard talk about the idea that this is not only somewhat good news or not disturbing news, but it's also maybe some indication that the Fed could think twice about what they're doing because they're saying it's deflation. The consumer price index fell. The consumer price, didn't fall. It rose. The consumer prices rose 0.1% for January. That is the core. That is stripping out gasoline, fuel, energy, and food. So we see a bit of a rise there. Now, it's interesting to note that energy prices were up 0.6% in spite of this. Now, that would be due to a lot of the cold weather and a lot of added usage. But that is up. Electricity is up 1.8%. And there is a 3.6% increase in natural gas, which offsets any decrease of 1% that we saw in gasoline this month. So it's hard to find the good numbers in here, but here's something very interesting. And this is the thing that I've been harping about when we look at consumer price index for the last couple of years. And again, the problem, we see an exacerbation of the real earnings that people make when we look at this number. So, consumer prices year over year, so for the last 12 months, are up 1.6%. Now, if you and I, some of us that actually grocery shop or put gas in our car, all those kinds of things, right? You and I would dispute that 1.6%. But let's just say they're accurate. They're not. But let's just say they're accurate. 1.6% climb, okay? Here's the thing. Real wages for that same period of time, the last 12 months, have gone up 0.4%. For the last 12 months, we have taken a giant, because this is a giant step backwards by 1.2%. So we are already, when we factor in inflation, at 1973 levels for wages. I bring this up because there's no way on God's green earth that we could possibly be in a recovery. And we've got an entire administration committed to not seeing any wage growth, any inflation in wage growth, as they continue to attempt and work hard at an equality in our wages. So that is a very pathetic number. It is something that we all should be concerned about. So if you're wondering why, I doubt that you are, because you're a lot smarter than the vast majority of our legislators when it comes to this, that are totally economically inept. You're a lot smarter than this because you're actually living it every day. If you're wondering why you can't get ahead when we have zero for all practical purposes. I mean, we have obviously some inflation here, 1.6%, but that's low. That's low by any standard. So we have very low inflation, and you can't seem to get ahead. This is the answer. And it has been decreasing for the last 20 years, dramatically in the last 5 years. But we're in a recovery. But we are in a recovery. Let's not forget that. And this administration and all the liberal economists and pundits out there, if they keep saying it enough that we are in a recovery, then, of course, we certainly must be in a recovery. I know the technicals behind a recovery. So don't anybody call and say, well, we really are in a recovery because, no, I understand that. I get that. I understand that from a technical standpoint, any 2 quarters that are positive GDP growth means that we're out of a recession and that we should be in a recovery. We have not been in a recovery yet. From a technical standpoint, yes. But if anybody believes the technicals, after all the corruption and garbage that's been exposed, then we really got bigger problems than I think. So anyway, that's the economic news. Anyway, 866-300-9298. We are going to get to your phone call. So if you want to take queue your call up, you're welcome to do that. We've got a line open, 866-300-9298. Stock futures dropping in America, primarily due to China's PMI, the price for manufacturing index. Also, everybody seems to be waiting for Walmart's numbers. Walmart's numbers did come out, and they beat expectations by a penny. So that should be perceived as some good news. I don't know that the earnings of one company is going to drive the market positive, but I will say this, it is Walmart. So there's an enormous amount of consumers going to Walmart. But here's the question that we've got to ask whenever we look at a Walmart picture. Remember, I don't know a comparison, but are people shopping at some other high-end or mid-end department store? Are they, because they're feeling this crunch that I just talked about, are they moving to Walmart? In other words, are they going to Walmart now where they maybe would have not gone to Walmart? I mean, is that a possibility? I believe it's a reality, not just a possibility. So it would stand to reason that Walmart's numbers would go up, and keep in mind this includes Sam's Club. So anyway, just a thought, but I don't think it's going to do anything to drive anything up. China's is kind of hit Europe with this, double whammy, and the stocks are in the red over there in Europe. Thursday, after weaker than expected reports out of China's manufacturing sector, which compounded the impact of some somewhat hawkish views from the Fed's minutes that I said I was going to talk about. So the European stocks are not doing so good. But here's something very interesting. It doesn't mean anything because we will learn no lessons from this, and I suspect that Europe won't learn any lessons from this, but I've been talking about this since 2008. I've been talking about this. Germany had a very high unemployment rate. They were going in the tank. Their economy was floundering. Does that sound familiar? Not doing real well. They decided the people elected a conservative parliament, a conservative prime minister that was fiscally conservative. Germany's business activity grew at the fastest rate in almost 3 years. February suggesting Europe's biggest and strongest economy continued to accelerate during the first quarter of the year. Germany's business activity reached a 3-year high. Well, that's just because of, it's coincidence. It's got nothing to do with the conservative government and the cuts that they've made in the size of the government and the cuts they've made in their budgets. And so it's got nothing to do with that. Got nothing to do with that. Oh, really? Okay. Well, we'll see, because like always, the Socialist Party, the liberals, will run for election at some point in time, and everybody is going to take for granted what happened under conservative leadership, and they'll reelect them, and then we'll see how things go from there, just to drive the point home. I don't think anybody's going to learn any lessons from this in Europe. France might. France decided they weren't quite liberal enough. They weren't quite socialist enough. They elected a very left-wing president. Things haven't been going so good afterwards. I suspect that they'll turn that around in the next elections. Georgia closes its 4th hospital. It's the 4th hospital it's closed. It is citing Obamacare payment cuts for emergency services as the reason. Many hospitals in 25 states that have rejected Medicaid expansion are facing similar financial problems, and we're going to likely see this continue throughout at least these 25 states and more when it all comes right down to it. The federal government has historically made payments to hospitals to cover the cost of uninsured emergency patients. And they have done this regardless of the ability of those patients to pay. And they have always received some kind of reimbursements from the government in reference to that. That is slowly, since 2012, January 1st, 2012, that has slowly been disappearing and getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Hospitals cannot survive. Doctors cannot survive. When you see 4 hospitals close in Georgia, then that means there are 4 fewer hospitals to pick up the slack. People have to travel further. People have to wait longer to be seen as a result of that. We are starting to see all around the country the issues with the quality of care as a result of Obamacare, but nobody seems to think about it. On a comical note, President Obama drew a line in the sand again with the Ukraine. Come on, really? I wonder how laughable that was in the international circles. I think we got a line that was drawn in the sand over Syria that he just keeps drawing another line. I don't know. This whole strength through weakness isn't working real well. 866-300-9298. We'll be right back.